Hello, everybody. It is Friday, and I took a week off. Saw what I did there, didn't you? Welcome to Moohead Radio. I'm your host, Bloviating Bovine, and I'm going solo today. Every so often it's nice to do a solo flight just to prove that I can still do it. But I don't have that much to talk about. I do have some NFL stuff that I want to talk about and some Brown stuff I want to talk about. So it'll give me plenty of opportunity to do so. If for any reason you're late and you want to come onto the panel, feel free. All you have to do is check out the YouTube site and the description of the show. Right there is a link and you can pop right in. Hello, Mark Ross. How art thou? He asked in a vaguely Shakespearean way. All you hear about is, there's a 23rd woman now who, it's called keeping the pot boiling. And honestly, a person who saw him on multiple occasions and kept going back is hardly worthy of my spending time talking about that on what amounts to a twice a week show. The thing that amazes me is how big an issue the Deshaun Watson thing can be and how every little thing is microscopically examined. Yet bigger things like why Eric Bieniemy is not a head coach in the NFL don't get discussed at all. In fact, Bieniemy recently did an interview in which he said, I'm just going to keep trying to do what I can to get a job. But again, nobody wants to talk about that because that's getting dangerously close to Colin Kaepernick territory, which is a name that a lot of people wish did not exist. But I think the NFL has a much bigger problem than what they're going to do when they suspend Deshaun Watson, which will occur. There are many bigger, more salient issues for the NFL. And I want to ask an open-ended question. And the women who are suing for money, I acknowledge that they're going to get a return on this lawsuit. There's no question. In a civil court, that's what happens. Is there going to be guilt established? Well, I think there already should be guilt established. I mean, quite honestly, that's not the way professional people on either side of the aisle particularly act. And I would expect way, way more of a top athlete, just as I expected way more of the president of the United States, Bill Clinton, getting Hummers from Monica Lewinsky when he was given opportunities to cavort with other women. He decided to go rogue. Not exactly the smartest decision that a Rhodes Scholar ever made. But it really pales, this civil case, compared to the pile of bodies, dead bodies, that keep turning up from former NFL players. And I'll be the one who talks about it because God only knows the NFL doesn't. God only knows the people who are singularly focused on one civil case don't talk about it, but I will. Another one bites the dust. Marion Barber III might not be somebody that you remember. I do. He played for the Dallas Cowboys. Turns out he played there from 2005 to 2010, and then he went off for 1 year to the Chicago Bears in 2011. However, he is a player that Dallas Cowboys fans will remember, not because he was necessarily the most talented, not that he knocked everybody's socks off. He did run for 4,780 yards, 53 touchdowns, and made a Pro Bowl appearance in 2007. And look, he was a good football player. But good football player doesn't mean a goddamn thing in the NFL, you see. If you're a superstar player in the NFL, then all kinds of things will be said, good and bad, about you. If you win Super Bowls, then they stop saying any bad things about you, like Ben Roethlisberger or Tom Brady or any quarterback who won multiple Super Bowls. And nobody will say a goddamn thing about Marion Barber III. He had one really prolific season. And that prolific season, he had 975 yards. And he was described as a bruising running back. The kind of guy who was inside the tackles, who ran over people. He's dead at 38 years of age. Now, I understand that people can die at 38 years of age, but I'm really not giving the benefit of the doubt to the NFL, not on anything anymore, because they're a bunch of dishonest people. The entire game is dishonest. And the family of Marion Barber III emphasized that his brain would not be donated toward research into chronic traumatic encephalopathy, also known as CTE. And here's the reason why. Quote, he was real specific in his will that he didn't want that. Marion Barber II said of his son, per the father outlives the son. Right. We're going to respect that. But in the condition his body was in, according to the examiner, that probably would not have been much of a point because of the decomposition. They found his body in the place where he lived decomposed. The fact is that this particular player had problems, suffered mental health challenges since his retirement from the NFL in 2012, was hospitalized on 2 occasions for mental health evaluations. Don't fucking tell me that it's not CTE. Don't fucking go there. Nauseates me. And these are the people who are determining the fate of this player or that player based on moral grounds. This pile of dead bodies that gets bigger by the year. It reminds me of Vince McMahon and his murder fest called professional wrestling. He's a murderer! You see, it's easy to sit there and say, he's a rapist! All the witnesses are talking. They are alive. The people who have and had CTE can't even speak for themselves. Nothing. Nobody talks about them either. They're forgotten. And the hundreds and hundreds more who put in to try to get the league to pay for insurance, health insurance for these players and the NFL, like the tobacco industry. Oh no, it doesn't cause lung cancer now. No, not cigarettes, no. Tobacco's a plant. It's safe. And they just wait until the people who file complaints die. You know, Rick, the whole story is sickening. Where was his family when he was suffering mental problems when he finished playing the game in 2012? the mental evaluations. Why was he in a place alone, left to literally rot? Because nobody was looking out for him. He probably didn't want any help because he was ill and nobody did a goddamn thing. And so he laid there on the floor and fucking decomposed. Oh, but those NFL people, they're really good at imposing sanctions and fines and suspensions, aren't they? They're on the high moral ground, aren't they? And there are hundreds more. It's there on the internet if you want to wiki it. The hundreds of players who put in for health insurance claims that the NFL has ignored, done nothing about, and one by one, they die. I don't want to hear this, he's a rapist shit. I never want to hear that shit again. You say that to me, out the door you go. Don't fuck with that. When you know that somebody had CTE because it was proven and people donated their brain tissue and you still deny it and you do nothing to help people that you know presently have it. Makes you a murderer, I'm sorry. I don't want to hear about bullshit about abortions murdering fetuses. There are people walking around the goddamn street who gave their lives to play a game that they did not know was that dangerous. The players who play the game today, they know. And if they want to do that to themselves, as far as I'm concerned, knowing is at least knowing. You don't come back after the fact, oh, woe is me. But these people didn't know. They had no idea. I've watched it with boxers being punch drunk. I was watching a documentary about Meldrick Taylor, the fighter who won 11 of 12 rounds against Julio Cesar Chavez, and Chavez knocked him out with 3 seconds left in the match because Richard Steele stopped the fight, questionably. But the fact of the matter was the damage was obviously done. Not only was Meldrick Taylor never the same fighter, but he incurred brain damage, and now you can't even understand half of the words he says. And his memory is shady at best. And yeah, Bob Arum, Don King, the whole lot of them, they don't help fighters out when they get ill after the fact. They don't do nothing. They disappear, just like Marion Barber III's family. I don't know. I guess when you read stories, I put a degree of urgency in front of stories where I see people are dying. All right? If somebody is robbed, I say that sucks. If somebody's robbed at gunpoint, I say that's fucking scary. If a guy goes into a school in Uvalde and kills people, students and teachers, I say he's fucking criminal. He should be put away and locked away for good. Derek, wasn't expecting you, Mr. Frisbee.
Yep, I just got home.
Well, I'm glad you're joining me because I'm having a scream fest about the NFL and the passing of Marion Barber III and any number of other things that irritate the hell out of me. And now in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is Rox's hometown, in a hospital that she actually went to, guy kills a doctor 2 weeks after his back surgery because he says, I don't like the job he did. And he goes in and he kills a bunch of people and then blows his own brains out. And that's too easy. It's too easy to let them kill themselves. No. And I know what people will say, well, it's tax dollars money. Make him go through the process and punish him. Life is sacred. I don't mean unborn lives and taking away the rights of women. I'm not talking about that. People who are walking and talking and who are not only functional, but the Marion Barber the Thirds of the world, the Leroy Hordes of the world. People who gained recognition in the league, all pro seasons. It's unbelievable. And these are the people that's like, oh, I wonder what the NFL, what kind of punishment they're going to mete out for Deshaun Watson. Who the fuck cares? Because it ain't going to be from the heart, and it isn't going to be based on law. It isn't going to be based on anything except the warped judgment of a league that doesn't care about human life. And now this. Idaho State assistant football coach Devontae Neal arrested and charged with first-degree murder. He was arrested in Pocatello, Idaho, at the request of the Maricopa County, Arizona Sheriff's Office. Sketchy exactly what happened. The alleged shooting of Brian T. Burns took place in 2017, according to police. That's who they're accusing Devontae Neal of murdering. Neal played college football for Arizona and Notre Dame. He had not previously had any coaching background in college football before being hired in January by the Idaho State coach Charlie Ragle. Ragle first coached Neal at Chaparral High School in Arizona, where Neal was a two-time Gatorade State Player of the Year. He also coached Neal at Arizona, where Ragle was an assistant coach from 22 to 2016. People who knew Devontae said that his arrest came as a surprise to everybody. There's no further details about this incident. Every time I see this, I think of Aaron Hernandez. Who in the hell knows what this game is doing to people? What do you think, Derek?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation because it's not something that you can necessarily control. I mean, anybody who's played football at any level kind of knows that. I mean, at any moment you can get hit extra hard or get thumped in the right way. I got a concussion. My worst one that I've had so far happened when I was tackling somebody else, and I just had hit him at the wrong angle and kind of caught the upper top half of the crown of my head, laid him out, but it took me out in the process. I didn't purposely do that, but you can't really avoid those things. So it's hard. I don't have the answer for you. It's kind of like you said, people back then, they might not have known the risks, but today you go into this knowing fully what you're going into and the
Right.
possibilities.
I mean, obviously today there is research that didn't exist when these players played the game. And it's disgusting to me that the league has protracted all discussion of this and left people waiting. And they're just waiting for the people to die.
I also think it's a big technique thing because a lot of times when you go back to the younger stages of football, you need to make sure the coaches are teaching proper technique because a lot of times you have these older guys who, are dads and trying to relive those high school days of them thumping people, and they're not teaching the fundamentals. You have got to teach kids how to break down, wrap up, drive the hips, because then if you do that, you're avoiding just running full speed into somebody.
But you know as well as I know, the football you were playing compared to what they're playing in the NFL.
Oh, yeah, no, I know.
There's
but
no
it starts at the
time.
lowest level.
There's no time to adjust. I mean,
No.
somebody comes flying across the middle of the field And your first instinct, I mean, they teach you to, read, anticipate, and act. You see what's happening. You see the guy breaking over the middle. You're going to tackle him, or whether it's the receiver who gets tackled, the guy who tackles him, and you launch yourself at an angle. And this is more of the crap from the NFL. This notion that they're protecting players by them throwing flags for head contact or questionable contact with helmet leaning forward, and it's all bullshit, man. It's all such bullshit, because you can't regulate this out of the game. I was on a tennis court back in Vermont years ago playing doubles, and my partner, was taking forever to serve the ball. And I turned to look like, what are you doing? And he hits the serve directly into my temple.
Oh my gosh.
And I suffered a concussion from that.
Jeez.
And also playing doubles this year, which was already from my wayward days of being a disc jockey when I was young, playing music on headsets too loud. I was hit right in the ear, and it did damage to my ear, which has further distorted the hearing in my right ear. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. And at the NFL, with the speed of the game, it could be over in an instant. But like you said, the players who are getting, drafted and paid and brought up, they want to play football. They know what the dangers are. But it just, I guess it really rubs me the wrong way when people comment on the program and they're so opinionated about the Deshaun Watson case. And it's like, this is a civil court matter. And yes, the NFL is going to rule on it and going to suspend him. But if you're looking to the NFL for doing the right thing, go fuck yourself. It's not going to happen. The right thing, that's what the civil court is there for.
And they're inconsistent too.
You're right. I mean, the NFL does what it's in its own PR interests, and and obviously they don't have a heart at all.
Well, and you look at situation by situation. I mean, we're trying to guess, and it's what we've talked about a couple weeks ago or whenever it was. We can all sit here and guess X amount of games. But let's be honest. Would we be surprised if the NFL said a season? Would we be surprised if the NFL said 4 games? I mean, that is the level of inconsistency that they've shown with situations like this. I mean, we just do not know.
Well, I think we do know that it's going to be on the harsher side, because there are other organizations in the league that have female complaints against them. And we're talking about the Commanders and the lack of upward mobility for women in the front offices of professional football teams. And this appears to be a larger issue on the radar of the NFL. So I believe that there will be, and it will be sensitive to the times that we live in. And let me say this, whatever happened to the women based upon their advertising on Instagram and the unsavory behavior of Deshaun Watson is a completely separate issue than upward mobility for qualified women in teams around the NFL. These are two different issues, and I don't like to lump them together. But the fact of the matter is, I am one who for years, in my industry, in broadcasting, if there is an announcer who is a disc jockey who is female, she was the morning show sidekick. How come she couldn't be the lead person? Well, she was for us in Binghamton, New York. Amy Meneghetti. She was the lead. She was the main morning show person, and she was very talented, very, very gifted girl. So, I mean, at the time she was a girl, now she's a woman. What can I tell you? It's always been like this. And I want to see not just some change. I want to see the change come faster. But
Well, and with the NFL side of things, I mean, they're dealing with a couple of different cases here that people don't know about because everybody only wants to talk about Deshaun Watson, and that's fine. I'm not saying that's not an issue because, of course, it is. But the NFL is also dealing with this new shit with John Gruden, which is a major, major thing. You
yep.
also have Washington with Dan Snyder. That's something that hasn't gone away. But because Deshaun Watson's situation is what it is, the NFL is going to try to sweep all the other stuff under the rug, and put this Deshaun Watson themed umbrella to cover everything. And that's their way of getting out of this shit.
And you know something, if you want to talk about, I briefly mentioned Eric Bieniemy. I mean, he's just sitting there wondering. I mean, he and Baker Mayfield must feel like peas in a pod. It's like, what more do I have to do? I mean, it's like Baker Mayfield goes from being the number one overall and he can't even find a job in the NFL, and Eric Bieniemy just keeps amassing statistics from an offensive coordination perspective that are vastly superior than people who are being hired by other teams. And he goes not just not getting a job, he goes uninterviewed. I mean, how can that be? Nobody wants to talk about that. And they don't have to hire Eric Bieniemy. They don't have to do that. But when they keep hiring these dumb white yutzes who immediately get fired a couple years later, I mean, you can't tell me that if goddamn Pat Shurmur keeps getting opportunities, that Eric Bieniemy shouldn't get at least one.
Well, look at Brian Flores. Look at what he did for Miami. Took a team that was terrible and made them competent. And he's on the Pittsburgh Steelers right now as an offensive assistant, whatever his title is.
Yeah, to me, it's watching the recycled people who keep getting rehired, and they're just bozos. They're losers, and I recognize, and I don't even know. It's like, I didn't know that he was with such and such a team. I remember him when he was with the Browns, and he sucked a big moose, and he still does. I can't run down the sheer number of coordinators that we've had in Cleveland who were terrible at their job, and they don't get hired for a couple of years, and then they're right back working again. And then you have a guy who's clearly not being hired because he's black. Clearly. How can you say whether he's qualified or not if you don't give him the goddamn job and a chance to prove himself? It's sickening to me. I expect nothing from the NFL. Nothing whatsoever. I wanted to say congratulations to Alex Mack. He's retiring after 13 NFL seasons. And you know that Alex Mack was a whale of a player everywhere he's been, whether it was the Browns, the Falcons, and his last year at the 49ers. I mean, my goodness, he had a great year last year. He's played 204 games for 3 different teams.
Yep. Always reliable.
Yep. 36 years old. He earned his final Pro Bowl appearance last season. Can you believe that? As a 36-year-old guy, they're a talented guy who got an opportunity to play for the 3rd time with Kyle Shanahan. They worked in Atlanta and Cleveland, and then with the 49ers. He knows that system inside and out. And when he was with the Browns, was a cornerstone, a guy that you could count on. And could
you imagine an Alex Mack in his prime on this offensive line?
Oh, I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, you dream of something like that because, guys, it's like a Joe Thomas, they don't come very often, guys who not only play 13 NFL seasons, but their standards remain impeccable through 13 years. I mean, you see guys who hang on and then they bounce around and they're not what they used to be. But I mean, you make a Pro Bowl in your 13th season, you're doing something right. The Browns picked him 21st overall in the 2009 NFL draft.
Well, that's somebody who's lived up to being a first round pick center right there.
Yeah, I mean, I wish him
much more.
I wish him nothing but the best of luck. I'm going to get myself in trouble again here. I guess just call me Mr. Dangerous. I'm so sick and tired of talking about Deshaun Watson in the capacity of defending him or not defending him or trying to take the middle ground. I'm so fucking sick of it, I could puke. Why isn't anybody talking about why Deshaun Watson will make the Cleveland Browns a better football team? Why aren't they talking about that, Derek?
Because you have to look at it from the media perspective. In today's world, no matter what it is, you always have to take the side of public, not even public opinion, but there's that risk there that if you don't agree with a certain side on issues like this, people will come against you and you'll be attacked. It's the culture of today. It is what it is. But I personally believe, and I know we've talked about this multiple times, that because Deshaun Watson is a Cleveland Brown, that emphasizes that times 10. The New Orleans Saints, the Atlanta Falcons, the Carolina Panthers didn't get any criticism for being interested in Deshaun Watson. There was many other teams who were interested as well. Nobody's talking about them, but we so happen to end up with him, and we're the Browns, and we're going to get that extra criticism.
Well, here's what I know. And I know how much Kevin Stefanski loves his 3 tight ends, right? But his system didn't do well for any of them. I mean, it's great that David Njoku signed for what he signed for. They say it's a 4-year deal. In essence, it's really a 2-year deal because after that, nothing's really guaranteed for him. But you look at what happened to Austin Hooper, who just looked like a slow snail in the Browns offense. You look at Njoku, who was targeted far more under Freddie Kitchens than under Kevin Stefanski, who allegedly loves him some tight end action. And then you even have Harrison Bryant. And you look at the number of targets, and it's like, how do we know that this problem just isn't all on Stefanski and his limited system? What I do know is this. There is one eye-popping statistic, and there are many about Deshaun Watson, but one that really sticks out to me. In plays of 20 yards or more, he completes 44% of his throws. Nobody really comes close to that in the NFL, folks. When you're throwing that far down the field, his accuracy is inordinately good. And the hope and the reason that the Browns pick back up on David Njoku is because Njoku, all the way back when double wide Freddie Kitchens was slaughtering the organization by coming up with an offensive scheme that nobody understood, including the players, he was targeted and had more of those 20-yard catches than any other year he played for the Browns. It seems like everything was shrunk down in Stefanski's offense. The more as Stefanski, the longer he's been here, everything just keeps shrinking down. The upside of having Deshaun Watson is that he's extremely accurate throwing the ball downfield. And, if you want the opportunity to have a player who can take you in a third down situation and put the ball on the money, or surprise defenses on first and second down by going downfield, it really helps if you have a quarterback who's accurate that way. And it's not a rap on Baker Mayfield. This is not what this is intended to be. But it's just a fact that the man's statistics over his entire career show that he is a vastly more accurate long-range passer, and that it's going to require a change in the thinking of Kevin Stefanski to take advantage of this. And the Browns are hoping that the speedier and the more athletic of the tight ends is who we wanted to hold on to. Is that hard to understand, Derek?
It's really simple to me. I mean, a lot of people are going to talk about last year. I don't throw out last year, but at the same time, I feel like the reason why the offense was so shrunk is just because you didn't have the ability to really open things up. Baker was trying to play through hurt. He was clearly limited to, his extent with the shoulder injury. Teams were really stacking the box. That limits you offensively because when you don't have that run threat, you can't really, back some of those DBs up from playing in the box. So I'm not too worried about that because I think it was more so the injury and the limitations that came with that. As far as the tight end goes for Stefanski, it's an interesting question because we've seen Austin Hooper's time in Cleveland, and he's gotten a lot of receptions, but has done nothing with them.
But he
So,
also was dropping a lot more passes.
yeah. So the question now becomes now that you have a new quarterback, and this is not a slight against Baker, but I do think that Deshaun's style of throwing the football, where Baker is more of a torque and aggressive passer,
Yeah.
whereas Deshaun is more of a touch and placement kind of guy. I think that benefits a guy like Njoku better because then he can kind of use his size, use his frame, and go up and catch balls. So I'm not too concerned with it, to be honest. But
Well, let's put it this way. Watson's mechanics are far better than Mayfield's. The problem with Baker is that, and it has been since he was a rookie, and we were hoping, and they worked with his footwork between his first and second year. The problem is that we have seen his passes sail because he was, it was a lot like Boomer Esiason when he played with the Bengals. The ball, but he would have games where the ball just sails, and of course, when the ball sails over your wide receivers' heads, there's guys behind them to pick the ball off, and so many interceptions happen that way. And without utilizing injury as an explanation, he had games like this from the moment he came into the league, and they wanted to change his mechanics after his first year.
which I think was a massive, massive hurt to him. Because if you notice, when he was when he had that right foot forward, his drop back, his drop step, whatever, was way more natural. And I
Yep.
felt like when they changed it to his left foot forward, it was just not that it wasn't trying to fix things, but for him, that muscle memory just never caught up. And it was just threw him out of whack. I thought that was a really bad idea.
I'll tell you something else. I'll use a metaphor, Major League Baseball. If you're a Guardians fan, you know who James Karinchak is, relief pitcher for the Cleveland Guardians. Not this year because he's injured. If you're an older Cleveland Indians fan, you remember Paul Shuey. And there are guys who throw a herky-jerky, you called it a torque-oriented 98 miles an hour at the big league level. And then there's the guys who throw the easy 98. Baker was not an easy 98 guy. Baker really wanted to step in and just put all the mustard he could on the ball. You just watch film of Deshaun Watson and just watch how the ball just easily leaves his hands and how it just, the distance on the throw is effortless. Baker was the exact antithesis of that.
Yeah.
And,
But also when you look at Deshaun and kind of the comparisons from, Baker to Deshaun, one thing that Deshaun has that Baker does not is he understands the pre-snap reading of defenses way, way better than Baker. And that's just something that he didn't pick up on like he should have. So, I mean, in terms of the pre-snap, the little things like that, Deshaun does have that edge, which I think gives him that upside, like you're talking about, where Baker's got the torque and everything like that. Whereas Deshaun knows who's going to be open and when more so because he understands, what different guys are doing better.
and I'm going to bring up another name. Not that I necessarily enjoy bringing it up. Tim Tebow. When Tebow was drafted out of Florida, and people said real question marks, they watched him work out. The biggest rap on him was the motion of his arm coming back
real
and
wide.
then forward.
Yeah.
Yep. And instead of getting it up right away, and if you're a right-handed quarterback, they want you up in that position. And the reason is because professional football runs at such a hotter pace than college football
Timing.
that Tebow never was able to get timing with any wide receivers because the motion of his throwing the ball, it's very difficult for receivers when a quarterback is mechanically unsound to hit their spots at the right time. And the timing is never quite right. And with Tebow, it never looked right. It always looked like he was winding up. And by the time he got the ball there, it was a beat too late.
Well, and
And
look
that's
at
what I
defensive
was.
ends now. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're torquing back, not torquing back, but if you got a real wide throwing motion and it's not close, and you're not getting that ball out quicker, by the time some of these guys are coming off the edge, my goodness. I mean, could you imagine if TJ Watt played up against Tim Tebow? He'd have 15 strip sacks in a game. You got to be able to pull that ball down.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, the thing that I saw that I was reading was that, I mean, and again, I kind of grit my teeth. They're going through this little mini camp thing or whatever they call it. And who is he throwing the ball to? And the guys who are getting used the most are Donovan Peoples-Jones and Schwartz and David Bell. Those are the players who are seeing the most balls thrown at them. And according to all people who would know, they say Watson looks very good in what he's doing. And again, the question is going to be, can those three receivers get open in any scheme, let alone Kevin Stefanski's scheme?
Speaking of these OTA and camp battles, Isaiah Weston, our UDFA signing, he's turning some heads, standing out. So, I kind of talked about that battle between him and Michael Woods on who's going to make the roster as that last receiver. Woods has got to step it up because I've seen a couple times now, especially more so on Twitter of people saying, "Man, Weston's kind of turning heads here." So
What's the
that'll be
story on
interesting.
Weston? Feed me with his college background real quick.
So he went to, it's not North Dakota State. Maybe it's like Northern Iowa State or something like that.
All right.
It's a smaller school. This is he's somebody who is a very, very big receiver. I want to say he ran a 4.42. Now he's got great size, great speed. He doesn't have a lot of burst. So whenever he's kind of cutting, he doesn't have that quick speed to where, coming in and out of his routes. It's kind of that one speed thing. I'm pulling it up here to give you his exact size, but he's okay, here it is. So he ran a 4.42. I was right on that. He's 6'3", 214 pounds. He's a bigger receiver. Um, he stretches the field really, really well. He's kind of similar to Michael Woods in the sense of you not really guys that you want to use technique routes, you know what I mean? Coming over the middle, cutting inside, outside. But when you need somebody who's bigger to just kind of burn downfield, him and Michael Woods are the guys you want. So I mean, he's
I s-
turning heads.
I did watch a lot of film on him prior, and Northern Iowa sounds right.
Yep, Northern
Um,
Iowa. I got it here.
yeah, he got behind people,
Yep.
okay, and it looked to me like a lot of the patterns that he ran were just fly patterns of one sort or another. I didn't see a lot of in traffic catches by him.
No. And yeah, those are the things that he's got to work on. Um, and him against the NFL corners, because going to a small school like this, when you have that size and speed, I think it's kind of easier, to get those catches. But at the NFL level, and that's why I was kind of interested for the Browns, how is he going to stand out? But I mean, he's got the size to get the jump balls and everything like that. It's just going to be a matter of, can he make more of the skilled catches, how he adjusts. So, but he's got a lot. The only real negative is he's older.
Right.
I want to say he's
25
23.
or
Oh, really?
24.
Uh, Give me 2 seconds. I can find that for you.
But he was a year or two beyond what normally would be coming out. And I'm not
Okay.
sure why that is, except redshirting, maybe.
Of course, it doesn't want to tell me. Just give me a minute. I'll find it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Michael Woods, I don't. The thing is, somebody will make the team, and the guy who makes the team is going to the guy with sparkles on special teams. That's usually what happens when you're down
Oh,
in sixth,
he's
seventh.
he's 24 and a half. And that was
Yeah,
in
you see,
February.
yeah, and that kind of is what I was leaning toward. I remember this story, and I don't understand. I assume he started somewhere else and ended up at Northern Iowa. I don't know if he had an injury that pushed him back, but he was redshirted for some reason.
It says since 2019 through now he's been at Northern Iowa, so I don't know if he's just stuck around or what.
Does he have a diploma?
Yeah, maybe.
Career college student, huh?
I guess.
Uh, well, another thing that came up here was, they're talking more and more that Newsome may be in the slot more than he was last year. And depending on how much he's playing the slot position, there's a lot of questions about Greedy Williams and how Greedy Williams will fit into the secondary. Are you hearing anything about that at all, Derek?
I've not heard about Greedy, but I have heard about, them wanting to use Newsome inside. To me, it seems like what they really want is they'd like to have Greedy and then Martin Emerson strictly play outside and then be able to have the versatility of Ward, Newsome, and AJ Green kind of play inside and out. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see Greedy Williams as a particularly physical defender, but I do see him as, they obviously want Denzel to be more, he's going to be on the top receiver, outside receiver. Uh, I can see Greedy Williams getting a lot of snaps, getting a lot of action on the field, to be sure, but he's clearly behind Newsome as far as his coverage skills.
Oh yeah, it's not even close. Newsome is hot take, but Newsome has all the tools to be better than Denzel Ward in a year or two.
Yeah, I mean, it's
He
going to be
just
interesting to
does.
see. And they're saying Greedy Williams played in 16 games last year, so they're hoping that the injuries that have beset him early in his career are starting to, lessen.
Wow. You can say that all you want, but when it's
All
a
it
nerve,
takes is one play. I know.
yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that, it's interesting. The other thing is the question a lot of people are asking about Nick Harris. Do they really believe that Nick Harris can really do the job at center, or are they just saving some money because of how much they spent?
He did the job last year when he had to fill in. I mean, they drafted him to be JC Tretter's replacement. So I'm not too surprised that this is where we're at, but it's just going to be a matter of him actually proving it. He put on 15 pounds of muscle in the offseason. So good for him seeing the opportunity and taking it, but it's up to him now.
Yeah. Before we get on out of here, somebody sent me David Telesky. He's a guy who writes to me. And he said, "Did you see that NBA game?" I had taken a look at the score in the third quarter and said, "Fuck this! I'm not going to tune in and watch." I think Steph Curry had like 30 points in the game. I'm not going to watch him.
Did you see Al Horford?
Yeah, he had hit
Holy shit.
6 threes. I fucking couldn't believe it. And no, I didn't see it. That's my point. The point is, I took a look at my phone, and the third quarter, it was like going in the wrong direction for the Celtics. It was the first game of the series. It was a home game for the Warriors. It's what I call a momentum game because you're just geeked playing in front of your home crowd. That the real danger game is usually game 2, where, you've already settled back in at home and you can come out flat in the second one. And I figured the game was over. But who in the hell? Boston comes out and makes 7 threes in a row and outscores them like 40-24 in the fourth quarter and beat them. Just shock the hell out of them.
Well, even Marcus Smart there late had a very crucial 3 to kind of seal the deal from them creeping back in. I mean, they were firing last night late in the fourth.
I just, and again, I've watched Boston play all year, and they have the capacity, with Jason Tatum and, the guys who can get hot on that team. But we're talking about guys like Pritchard and guys like Horford.
Yeah.
That's not what we were seeing during the regular season. So Marcus Smart doesn't surprise me because he's been playing real well. But Pritchard and Horford, it's like, and I don't think I've ever heard of a game where Al Horford hit 6 of 6 from behind the arc.
Who would have believed it if you said you had said that in game 1 of the NBA Finals, Al Horford was the real difference maker to finish that game. Unbelievable.
Well, that they're bringing him back next year. I mean, I would have sworn that he was like a statue, that he was basically a guy that a pigeon was looking for. And
well, if Jimmy Butler drove instead of trying to play hero ball, I mean, Miami could have been in the finals.
Yeah, I mean,
Horford was the only one in front of him.
That pull-up shot was a bad pull-up.
Well, he was off balance too. That's the thing.
And he had time.
Yeah, he rushed it. Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, but I thought, I said to David, no, shoot me. I missed the game. I won't miss the next one though. At least I'll record it for God's sakes. So I haven't even seen it. Just read about it. And the
It's a
final
sight
thing
to
I
see,
wanted
that's for sure.
to say, what?
They said it was a sight to see, that's for sure.
Yeah, God,
Al Horford nailing threes. Never thought I'd see that.
when it rains, it pours, man. And I've seen it happen on, I remember the game where, what was it? Kevin Love, how many points did he score in one quarter? Like 31 points in the first quarter of a game. I mean, it can hit at any time. And Al Horford has been a very, very good player, but he's been just merely a serviceable player for the last couple of years. You just wouldn't expect that to happen. But, I remember when the Cavaliers were before the first time LeBron left in his last year when we lost to the Celtics and Paul Pierce and that group, that the guy who made the killer shot was P.J. Brown. And I'll never forget fucking P.J. Brown for as long as I live. That guy had been in the league. I think he was out of NC State. He'd been in the league for so long. And it's like this guy was like an old, crippled version of himself. He comes in off the bench and he hits the single biggest shot of the game. It can happen. And it does happen all the time. But man, they caught fire. And the thing about Boston is they can't seem to play two back-to-back games that well. But they have managed to be able to get to 7, to get to 4, I should say, in best of 7 series. And that's all you have to do. And now they're 1 game ahead with a home court advantage. So crazy stuff. The last thing I wanted to mention, the Lakers have hired Darvin Ham as their new coach, and they're praising his no-nonsense approach. He better learn how to kiss LeBron James' ass very quickly, and he better be ready for some real nonsense, because what he's inheriting, God help him. If you're wondering where he came from, he spent 9 seasons working under Bucks coach Mike Budenholzer in Atlanta and Milwaukee, and they, including winning the 2021 championship together. He served as an NBA assistant coach for the last 11 seasons, including 2 years with the Lakers back in 2011 to 2013. They say that, he's tough. He has a history of coaching star players. Well, he better, because Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis, good luck. If Darvin Ham wins a championship with the Lakers, then, I don't know shit about nothing. The Lakers are not the Lakers anymore. And every time I see one of these hires and the name Rob Pelinka up on my screen, I want to vomit. Rob Pelinka should have been gone a long time ago. So Cavaliers fans, you can go ahead and you can say, LeBron's going to be done after this year and he's going to come back to Cleveland, but don't wish it to be so. Memories are such wonderful things. Why ruin them? I don't want to see that again. Well, I do appreciate you making the show, Derek. It's very good of you.
Yep, I sped home just to talk, so.
Well, I hope you didn't speed excessively. We can't have that now, can we?
I was gonna make a very bad joke, but I will not make it. Let's just say I'm not a Raiders receiver, but I did make it.
Okay, all right.
You get where I was going.
Yeah, and I'm not going to touch it with a 10-foot pole either. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. Appreciate all the support out there. My dog is snouting me, trying to get my attention. He just got back from his walk, and he's wet, so it must be raining again outside. I'll see you again come Monday, and we'll have more to talk about. And as always, Derek, you're invited to come back and enjoy the festivities if you're free.
Yep, will do.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again on Monday. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.